No, don't want to tell you a story. Okay.
What did I say? What did you do?
How was it cheap? It was a synchro and then
They came up
oh, yeah, it was really fun.
Oh.
Actually won the hat competition. Did you? No, no.
There's third floor, but it's very small. It just has Professor Du's office.
Yeah, absolutely. Here. Sure.
I have to take a test to be an EMT today.
Oh, yes. Everybody needs to remember that column.
I didn't do it in school. I did it over the summer. I mean, I haven't like studied it all since the summer. So last night I was trying to do like an 8-week class. Not working out well.
Did you put in a review session yesterday?
I saw you there. What'd you think?
I thought macro was kind of chaotic.
I feel like macro is memorization and micro is surrounded by math.
Well, just to make a brief announcement first.
Oh, yes.
We're going to have a meeting on 17th, April 17th, it's Saturday for 3 hours. I would suggest we're not going to have a meeting on April 27th. And April 27th is a discussion on the dialogue among civilizations and the global ethic. So my proposal is that on April 17th, for the first couple of hours, we'll be focusing on some general observations, and I will encourage you to make short presentations, and we'll arrange it later. For the then the remaining hour will be focusing on the issue of April 27th, which means Universal Declaration of Human Rights and global ethic in the age of cultural diversity, among others. So we would, since we're not going to meet 14, our focus on the 17th will be reviewing earlier discussions. And by then, we still have 2 sessions on an ecological perspective. So these 2 sessions will just follow the original plan. Let me repeat. On the 17th, we're going to have a 3-day meeting, and 1 hour will be devoted to the readings and discussions of April 27th, because we're not going to meet it. Otherwise, everything will follow the original pattern, okay? I probably will make the same announcement. Now we're moving into an area which is an attempt to look at Confucian ethics in the context of the modern world. Some of the most critical problems we face in the ethical realm. And I would like to ask for your participation. So starting from the next meeting, and I will begin with short statements from you, of course on a voluntary basis. And then the statements would be relatively short, from 3 to 5 minutes. So we open up with a few contributions, I don't know how many. And then we try to shape our discussion, not only according to the comments you people made, but something I prepared. So, and of course now, if you have any questions, please raise those questions so we can begin with more like a conversational style rather than simple presentations from me. Is that all right? So starting from next week, you'll be invited to give short presentations, 3 to 5 minutes, and prepare these presentations so they will be focused, and the purpose is to help the whole class to address those issues. And for today, it's like an introduction to some of the critical issues we're going to face. in the modern context. Now you just assume that you have the Confucian ethics as part of your part of your ethical framework and part of your mental furniture. And you address these kind of issues, or these critical issues we face. Of course, we're not going to address the financial issues, not the major market trade and so forth. But we're going to focus on more perennial problems of self-understanding, of the challenge of the viability of the human species, a question about rethinking the human in the 21st century with focus on what kind of ethics that is required for the human community to survive and flourish. There are quite a few approaches to ethics, and some of the very difficult problems we face for all people in ethical reflections is whether it is legitimate. And in fact, you're all exposed to these kind of criticisms, sometimes very much aware, sometimes just relegate them to the background. One question is a form determinism, and determinism in a more flexible way. It's not simply determinism that is so overwhelming, it's very difficult for us to do anything about it. And a more ingenious way, not necessarily for the purpose of relegating ethics to the background, but to make ethical thinking extremely problematical. One very brilliant presentation, I made reference to that before, is the question of the multiple intelligences. So each one of us is endowed with certain kind of basic disposition or value orientation or competences or critical choices based upon our own competences. So we think critically, what are some of the most basic resources we'll be able to mobilize in order to develop ourselves in a complex world. The world becomes complex and complex. Specialization becomes more and more important. And some scholars like Max Weber talk about the 21st century. That would be, or the modern world, that we basically rule by two kinds of people. Experts on the one hand, and managers on the other. Whether we like or not, we are trained to be experts in some ways. We as leaders, trained as leaders, will have to be charged with the responsibility of managing the world. Now, multiple intelligences suggests there are many ways of learning to be human. And the more you're critically aware, whether you are very much seasoned in mathematical thinking or digital thinking, or you're more anthropological, or you have a better sense of space, or you are more receptive to music, and many kinds of professions that will develop, and you have to make choices. You want to become a lawyer, the preparation is different from a medical doctor. You want to become a teacher, it's very different from becoming a musician, and many other choices. Now, since each human being is endowed with different intelligences, with different value orientations and dispositions, and we have to take that as absolutely seriously. Now, one observation is that in the modern world, that which occupies most of our time and energy turned out to be our profession. And now as, not your profession, but as students, you can imagine the role of being a student is time-consuming, and in fact, you're absolutely not controlled, but